G'day trendsetters, I'm John with Gravel Cyclist and I'm coming to you today with a review of the State Bicycle Company 6061 Black Label All-Road with XPLR AXS. What a mouthful. If you're a regular to the gravelcyclist.com website or Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel, you'll undoubtedly have seen my unboxing and features video of this particular bike. Regardless of your viewing status, let's crack on with the review. First things first, 6061 denotes a type of aluminium, or aluminum if you prefer, and historically, aluminium frames have often been quite harsh riding. Now that might have been true once upon a time, but nowadays the technology has changed so much, particularly with technologies such as hydroforming, which allows tube shapes to be formed beyond the usual realms of round tubes. So that means the bike designers can design tubes to where they can be optimized to have certain ride qualities in certain areas of the bike. So you might want a stiffer bottom bracket area, for example, but not so stiff elsewhere on the front to provide a certain measure of comfort or pliability, as I like to call it. And that's exactly what you receive here, a sweet 6061 aluminium frame set complemented by a full carbon fiber fork with through axles front and rear, and even flat mounting on the disc brakes. Hydraulic brake housings are run internally on the fork and on the frame set, so you get a nice clean look if that's your thing. And the cockpit parts are all branded SBC, State Bicycle Company. So you get a not so crazy flared handlebar, but with a really nice, comfortable, compact drop. And the seat post, well, it's a bit oversized versus the typical 27.2 millimeters you see nowadays. So that's going to be a point of concern for some riders, which I'll cover later in the video. This review sample is a size small, aka a 51 in State Bicycle Company nomenclature. That translates in reality to a 53.5 centimeter top tube, which admittedly is on the small side for myself, but thankfully bike fitting is a personal thing, and I'd rather make a smaller bike bigger, so it's quite easy to run a longer stand, setback seat post, that sort of thing to get your fit dialed in, and I had this bike pretty well dialed, no complaints whatsoever. Of interest is the SRAM Rival 1 by crankset fitted to this bike. Namely, it's 170 millimeters in length, but according to the spec sheet for this bike, it should be 165 millimeters, which I think is a little bit odd considering the recommendations on the spec sheet for riders up to 5'10" in height for this bike. So definitely pay close attention to your setup if you happen to purchase this bike. 165 is far too short for me. I'm very happy that I can ride 170 or 172.5 for that matter. In terms of mounting options on this bike, you get fender and rack mounts front and rear, and for the bottle cage mounts, you get the usual places you'd expect on the down tube and seat tube. Now for those folks who desire more mounts, unfortunately for you, there is no mount beneath the down tube, aka the cow catcher position for obvious reasons, or a top tube mount for a bento box, feed bag, top tube bag, whatever you like to call it. The big standout feature for this bicycle is its drivetrain, in my opinion, which happens to be the excellent SRAM Rival ETAP AXS XPLR, which happens to be a 1x specific drivetrain. Now, I freely admit that 1x is not my bag, but this bike is particularly well geared. At the front end on the crankset, you've got a 42 tooth chainring, and the cassette is 10 to 44. So you get a nice spread of gears and a pretty decent low gear, 42 by 44. So that will allow you to scale many decent climbs, probably about 15% without going too crazy or turning squares and so on. Of course, you can always lower the gearing by swapping out the chainring. I would personally like a 38 tooth chainring because that would cover just about every base. 38 by 10 is a pretty massive gear, and 38 by 44 is a pretty nice low climbing gear. But gearing is a personal thing, so what works for me may not work for you. One further note regarding some of these SRAM electronic drivetrain group sets. If you're interested in seeing no bullshit reviews of several flavors, including AXS Explore and 2x8, all of those reviews are linked in the description below. The wheel set is nothing to write home about. It's a State Bicycle Company branded wheel set. From the rims to the hubs, they're rather shallow, aluminium with a 19mm internal, and they are tubeless ready if you so desire. They are 28 spokes front and rear with 6-bolt disc brake mounting, so that's not the latest and greatest, not center lock, but that point aside, it's a very stout, sturdy wheel set. The stock tires are Vittoria Terreno Zeros in 700C by 38mm. They can easily be converted to tubeless, and there's quite good tire clearance on this particular machine. Finally, all this goodness will set you back US $2,599, which I reckon is an excellent value considering what you receive here. Now, electronic shifting is not going to be for everybody, but thankfully there are choices for all nowadays. So if you reckon electronic shifting sucks, which it doesn't, you can always buy something else. So that's the tech specs of the State Bicycle Company 6061 Black Label All-Road XPLR AXS Edition. Bloody hell, that's a mouthful. Let's find out now how it rides. Weighing in at 22 pounds with King titanium bottle cages and Shimano XTR pedals, this bike is not a featherweight bike, but remember its price point and the choice of wheels. State Bicycle Company has a versatile bike on their hands here, and they provide the option to purchase 2 pairs of wheels, 650B and 700C. This is the 700C variant. The wheels are stout and well built, but high performance they are not. I had limited time to ride these personal bird spoke NVG 23 carbon wheels on this bike, but I'll say they turned this bike into a legitimate performer, but there is a caveat, more on that later. Tyre clearance is very good at 700C by 47mm or 650B by 2.2 inches. Sizing is personal. This size small example is borderline a smidge too small for me at 535mm on the top tube, but it's easy to make a smaller bike bigger versus the other way around. There are 4 sizes available. You may fall in between, so check the specs closely. The shorter head tube length, which I love, will not be appealing to everybody. The bike's geometry works. Its steering is quick but not twitchy like a cyclocross bike, and proved capable over all manner of road surfaces, good and bad. The aluminium frame provides a comfy ride with the correct tyre pressure set, old news to some, bolstered by the front end's relaxed nature and forgiving carbon fork. I quite like the tube shaping that State Bicycle Company has incorporated into this frame. There's also the monster carbon fork available if you desire more clearance, and so on. The bike's manners were pleasant on pavement as well, important for those rides where you link pavement between gravel sectors. I do like the cockpit parts on this frame, although it would benefit State Bicycle Company to revert to a 27.2mm seat post versus the 31.6mm we see here. The bike did not beat me to death. That 27.2 has a little flex and rides better on rougher surfaces. The handlebar is narrow at the hoods, perfect for me, and just enough flare, which I'm not a huge fan of. Like the geometry, pay close attention to the part specs. Some widths, lengths, and so on may need some tinkering depending on the customer. The good thing is none of these parts are proprietary. Finally, the handlebar tape is a bit on the cheap side. It's thinly padded and something I would replace immediately. SRAM AXS Explorer is a one-buy only group and will not be for all, but it is an excellent performer, fast and reliable shifting, and the bike's price really has brought electronic shifting to a much wider audience. The Rival 1x crankset will even support an additional power meter, meaning you can really spice this bike up. Rear braking is where I had an issue with this bike, namely the flat mount for the rear caliper needs to be faced. Ordinarily I would have visited a local bike shop and have them handle that, but the point was to review this bike, preferably sans any frame modifications. The stock wheel set and other 2 wheel sets I tried with the bike would not stop rubbing against the rotor. It was absolutely maddening and a true spoiler of the bike. It may be an issue for just this one particular review sample, and you may have better luck. That negative aside, the State Bicycle Company 6061 Black Label All-Road is a fantastic riding bike. It won't break the bank if you desire electronic shifting, and with some upgrades, could be made into a very speedy bike for fast riding, racing, or whatever you're into. So there you have it, my review of the State Bicycle Company 6061 Black Label All-Road XPLR AXS Edition. A bicycle that I think is very worthy of your consideration, especially if you don't enjoy plonking down a ton of cash for a very nice performance-oriented aluminium/aluminum gravel bike. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel for no bullshit gravel bike reviews such as this, other product reviews, ride experience videos, and other madness. All right, baby, let's go. As all of it is released to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.